how you would look at a affordable housing long-term rental, we are going to look at 9622 Perry Lane, Unit C in Overland Park. And just for those of you that have not seen the latest podcast we've done, we brought on people from Kansas City, including my friend Tyler, who is probably, I mean, he does a lot of renovations as general contractor. And even if you have your own contractor, whatever, at least now you know who you can call as one of your calls for a investment project in Kansas City. And on this podcast, we talked everything from like how much an HVAC replacement will cost, etc. So definitely check it out if you're looking at investing in Kansas City. Obviously, do your own due diligence. And so today I want to look at some properties, right? He talks about how Overland Park is one of the top places consistently ranked to live. So I was looking at properties. Okay, this is 9622 Perry Lane, Unit C. And you can see right here, we have this property listed for 184,950. And for the most part, I mean, I could probably replace some of the appliances with stainless steel appliances that would make it a little bit nicer. But it's solid. I mean, would I replace some of the carpet with LVP? Absolutely. But at least you also know, oh, you have an in-unit, oh, you have in-unit washer dryer. That's a pretty big amenity. That makes a lot of difference for a lot of people. So this property of those two bedroom, it doesn't have space for you to add a third bedroom. So sometimes that's a minus. But hey, let's just try to figure out what would make this a deal, quote unquote, right? So the couple of items that you would like to gather in the first place is the first thing is you want to look up the rental prices. And this property is in Johnson County. So the first thing I did is look up Johnson County 2025 housing payment standards. And that's going to bring you to this page right here. And you can go to Johnson County Housing Public Housing Authority. You click on this link where it says 2025 payment standards by zip code. And that's going to bring you to this PDF. And on this PDF, you're going to get by zip code, by bedroom count, what is your rent ceiling for that specific property in a particular zip code. Now, keep in mind, these are payment standards, and payment standards this is where people mess up. Payment standards include utilities. So if you don't include utilities, right, this is what you have to do. If you don't include utilities as part of your rent, you have to take this rent ceiling of 1,600, right? That's a two bedroom, 66212, right? That's your rent ceiling, 66212. And you have to look up the utility allowances and back out the utility allowances. So, for example, if you have this is not a single family detached home, this is a attached home, semi-attached duplex, apartment walk. This is technically probably an apartment, even though it's a condo. So if you don't provide, let's say you use natural gas for heating for your two bedroom, and you don't provide that, right? You don't cover it. You have to deduct $27 from that. And you don't include water, you have to deduct $54. If you don't include sewer, you have to deduct $68. Now, typically, I know a lot of landlords, they do not include gas, they do not include air conditioning, they do not, right here, they do not include water because if you include it and there's a leak, the tenant isn't really incentivized to tell you that there's a leak because guess whose wallet is bleeding in this scenario? You as the landlord, right? If you cover heating and cooling, if they forget to close the windows when they are heating or cooling a unit, guess who pays for it? If you're covering for it, you do. So don't cover it, but at the same time, don't forget to deduct the utility allowance by asset type. So apartment versus single family home versus detached, attached, blah, blah, blah. By bedroom count, by utility that you do not cover. All right. So once you get to that point, that gets you to your new rent ceiling. Now that I see that $1,600, that's my payment standard, I also need to compare one more data point, which is comparing my market rent. When you compare your market rent, you can go to affordablehousing.com, you can go to the owner section, you can go to the rental estimate, put in your address, put in your bedroom count, and you're going to see right here that the average rent for 22 units within less than a mile, 0.88 mile radius, is 1344. So I'm going to write down this number right here, 1344. 1344. And I'm writing down these numbers because my partner already know how I analyze these deals, so I'm writing down this right here. And my payment standard is $1,600 for a 2-bed. Boom. $1,600 for the 2-bedroom. 2-bed payment standards. Boom. I don't need that. And this is for Johnson County in 66212. 66212. Now, this way my partners know where I got these numbers from. So here's the area where most people mess up. You have to use the lower of the two, no matter what. So if you see 1344 and that's lower of the two compared to it, I mean, I can say, hey, I don't need to worry about utility allowances. I'm just going to deduct and go with 1344. And here's why. There's a thing called the rent reasonableness test. Let's see. There's probably a link right here. Let's talk about Johnson County Housing Authority rent reasonableness. And this is the definition, right? The Johnson County Housing Authority, JCHA, must ensure that the rents charged by the owner or the landlords to Housing Choice Voucher, which was previously known as Section 8 vouchers, are reasonable. And that means you have to compare your proposed rent for your Section 8 voucher unit to unsubsidized, non-subsidized units in the jurisdiction. And you have to use the lower two, right? Because obviously you can't charge more rent to someone simply because they're a voucher holder, right? For the obvious reasons. So that's why I had to use for my rental estimate 1344. So I'm going to put that in there right there. So let's plug in the rest of the details. Again, if you want to follow along, just go to affordablehousing.io, not .com, and you can go to the Get Deal Analysis tool right here, and then that will allow you to get this same deal analysis tool that I'm using, so you can follow along. All right, so let's keep going. So this property is listed for 184,950. 184,950. This property is like pretty good condition. I don't think there's a really big rehab here. So I'm going to go in here to the rehab calculator. And I'm going to definitely put in a cage for the HVAC unit in case there is one. I'm not sure there was one in the unit or outdoors. I'm going to say it's out. Is it ground level? Isn't that? Yeah, it's not ground level. So that means this AC unit must be in there. So I don't need a cage. Usually sometimes you have townhomes where they have a HVAC unit in the backyard or something like that. So in that situation, I would put a cage because if that thing gets stolen, it's like $6,000 easily down the drain. I'm going to put high pressure flush toilets on my toilets. And that's because I have that at my rental properties right now. I've never had a clogged toilet call with pressure assisted toilets. So I'm going to keep it that way. Right? A lot of people forget if you get a clogged toilet call, it's going to cost you, give or take, $200 for the service call, $200 to replace the toilet easily. It's just not worth it. All right. Then for our vanity cabinets, we got 1, 2, 3. I think the vanities were okay, so I don't think I need to replace anything. That was pretty much rent ready. I might put in nicer appliances so that I can track. I put in a new fridge, new range. That's probably what I'll do. Cabinets were fine. I'm not going crazy here. For my paint, this property, it looked like it was in decent condition. I don't think I need to do much painting, but I always set aside like about 200 square feet, just a little bit of money for some touch-up paint in case something gets dinged up when someone moves out or moves in. I am not going to replace the flooring here because I think it's all pretty good condition. But if I do, can always put that back in there once I do an inspection of the property. I don't have any roof repairs on this property, right? Because I share a common roof. This is a condo, so I share a common roof. My expenses for that roof are included in my HOA fees. And look, much better schools. I like this. All right, so my HOA is hefty here, $355. All right, so let's talk about this. Why might this beneficial? So I got $5,000 rehab now after going through the spreadsheet. My taxes and my insurance, I'm getting my taxes right here, $97 for my taxes. For my insurance, I'm gonna do 120. So I'll do equals 120 times 1.2 because I'm assuming I'm going to get a 20% premium because this is an investment property. That's why I'm adding a 20% premium here. All right, now that I have this number here, I got to put in my HOA fee right here, $355 in B34. For my maintenance, typically I will set aside 10% of my rents every single month for maintenance. I'm not doing that for a condo because this condo fee of 355 is hefty, but that also covers some of your maintenance. It covers some of your big capital expenditure items like exterior and also your roof. So I like having that HOA fee completely set aside. This allows me to have 5%, right? So now at 420, right? If I do 25% down for this property, that's a $46,000 rehab. I would have, let's call it 3%. It's $5,500, $5,000 renovation. Boom. I'm going to do my interest rate at about 7% right now for, let's do 7.25 for a 75% DSCR loans, 75% loan to value loan. And if that is the case, I would be losing negative, right? If I rent this property out as a 2-bedroom for $1,344, I would be negative cash flow $467 a month. That's a negative 10% return, just rounding here. Assuming I bought this property for $185, just rounding here again, with a $5,000 rehab and a 7.25% interest rate. That's not a deal, right? And again, this is not investment advice. I'm not soliciting any investments on this call. I'm just simply showing you how you can go through a deal to figure out what's a deal. Now, let's say your cash and cash target in E9 is 8%. Great. If that is the case, well, what do I need to purchase by? If I lower my price in B4 to, let's say, 110 grand, still not a deal. If I go to 80 grand, boom. If I go to 65 grand, there you go. I'll have to buy this property for $65,000. And you know why? Because the HOA fee is so expensive that thing kills the deal here. So the rent just does not justify what's being asked of here at all, right? Because that's the only way you get the 7.6% return. Now, let's talk about it a little differently. What if you were just after like, hey, this is a great place to live and I'm just after some stable cash flow. I don't have to make much, but I'm just going to go after appreciation. I want to go after a long-term hold strategy because I believe in buying better neighborhoods so that I have less problems. Okay, what if my target is just to break even after all my expenses, right? You're still setting aside 5% for maintenance, right? Because you know something's going to break at some point. So you're not being crazy here. Let's say you want this to be 0, right? E9, break even. 90 grand, 95 grand. So now you know, roughly speaking, I would have to buy this property for $95,000, assuming everything else stayed constant, right? With a $5,000 rehab, 7.25%, renting out for a 2-bedroom again for $1,344. And that tells you to run far, far away from this deal. I mean, it's just not a deal. It's just not worth the effort. And that's okay. But now you know. I'll do you one more scenario. Let's say your interest rate dropped by a whole point to 6.25. And that can happen, right? Because guess what? The 30-year mortgage interest rate is affected by 2 things. It's affected by 1, the interest rate on the 10-year yield, and 2, the spread between the 10-year yield and the 30-year mortgage interest rates. Now, historically, that spread is about 1.5% to 2%, but it's gone as high as 3% really, and like it went as high as like high 5s in the 80s. But look at this, 4.1 and 6.3. So the spreads are pretty much normalized. It's like a 2.2% spread. So that spread already had its big movement. It's bound back down to normal. That's why you see rates a lot lower. And if you follow what's happening with the market, right, you have all these threats of terrorists, threats of trade, blah, blah, blah. Urge a boycott of the streaming giant over children's. What? Interesting. I don't think, is it what? That's such a weird headline. But look at the 10-year yield. Look, remember, don't follow what the Federal Reserve is doing because the bond market moves faster than the Federal Reserve. So stop paying attention to headline news where like, oh, Federal Reserve is cutting rates. You're like, why didn't it move? Because it already moved. The spread already moved. The spread already narrowed. So don't wait on the silence too long. You're still in the buyer's market right now. So it's probably a good time for you to think about like what to do. All right. So let's talk about this. You saw it go as high as like 4.78 literally just a year ago. a little less than a year ago. Now it's dropped up by 0.1. It dropped by like full 0.6, 0.7 points. This is literally one of the biggest moves you can probably have in a year, given the interest rate on the 10-year went down, and also the spread between the 10-year yield and the 30-year more interest rates also narrowed. So you can really, if you have good news overnight and you can have anticipation of interest rates getting cut a lot faster, you can get a half a point cut in the 10-year yield, and then you can also get movement in the spread, and you could really move a point. And if that is the case, guess what? Let's say you're still trying to break even. Now all of a sudden you can pay extra $10,000 for the same deal to achieve nearly the same return. And that's what I wanted to share with you. I wanted to share with you, how do you adjust the levers up and down to figure out what is going on, right? It's no different than if you were to say, hey, thanks for joining. It's no difference than if you were learning how to analyze the deal in a different way. Now, let's say your rehab doubled. No, let's say it's tripled, right? What are you willing to pay for the deal then, right? -6. What do you need to break even or buy the property for break even? So if I go to my renovation in B6 right now and I triple it, let's multiply that by 3. Boom. That's 15 grand. You might say, hey, I might pay $10,000 less for the property. Pretty common sense, right? But you just adjust these levers up and down so that you can figure out what is your buy box. So the next time a deal comes along the way again, and you're trying to figure out, hey, how do I figure out if this is a deal or not? You run the numbers, you pull the levers, and you take emotions out of the deal. Because guess what? You're going to find problems with your property no matter what. And the whole key when that happens is how do you react when that happens? And how you take emotion out of the deal is just learning to attach a number to that problem and objectively analyze whether or not that problem now makes the deal feasible or not feasible. Simple as that. So that's it. I hope you all, here's my sincere goal. I hope you copy my homework today, right? Analyze the same deal I analyzed today using the same spreadsheet right here. Again, go to affordablehousing.io if you guys want to get a copy of the spreadsheet. This is a deal that's right on the market. I didn't make this up. This is right there on the market. It's from 36 days. But guess what? I've been going live for 735 days in a row. And I bet if someone asks you, hey, why do you think this is a deal? You can say, hey, I know this is a deal because I've been analyzing deals for the past 730 days. Might that give you some confidence that you know what you're doing? I certainly hope so. Because guess what? I know how much effort it takes for you to figure out and how scary it is for you to take a leap of faith and believe in yourself. And the only way you're going to believe in yourself is if you do the work and you go back to your own YouTube channel and you say, wow, I probably know what I'm doing. I've been looking at deals every single day for the past 100 days, for the past 300 days, for the past 700 days. That's what's going to help you take that leap. All right. I hope you all have an amazing Friday. I hope you all spend some quality time with your family and friends today because that's what life is all about. And I'm so grateful for you all for tuning in to the Affordable Housing Podcast, supporting us. Like you, I would have never had the home I grew up in. And I appreciate you all so much. Thank you so much for tuning in live. I hope you copy my homework. Let's keep building. Have a good one, everybody.